I collect vintage Playboy magazines. They are excellent. So from like the 50s to the 70s, that was
like the heyday,
spot.
right?
Brilliant. And everyone always says, oh yeah, so why do you love those magazines? The journalism was actually incredible in those magazines, and also the style, like the amount of money that they spent on like the cutouts, the embossing, the design of those magazines. Like we try and put like that sort of element into the magazines we do, and I know how expensive that is, and they did it in every issue. I think that era was brilliant.
Welcome to the Property Funder podcast. I'm your host, Michael Dean. You can find me on the internet at property_funder. I'm here today with Beth Fisher, or Bethany Joe Fisher, if you find her on the socials. Beth is the managing director of Medianett Publishing. Beth's been with Medianett for 11 years, starting out as a journalist, on the beat, and working her way up now to top of the tree. I've known Beth for a long time. Have great admiration for her, and we obviously work together as a advertiser and sponsor of your various events. So, but Beth's a very interesting, charismatic individual with strong opinions. So I'm sure we will not be disappointed today. Beth, welcome.
Thank you so much. Thanks for having me.
You said just before we started rolling that you're a little bit jet lagged. So where have you been, and why are you so tired?
I am exhausted. I'm a little bit jet lagged because I only got back from the States at the weekend, so just getting used to getting back into the swing of things at work and the millions of emails that I need to get around to. But I basically did 7 states in 2 weeks, so which isn't out of the norm for me. I think I did 10 states the year before, 2 years before, in 2 weeks. So wow. Yeah, I'm trying to tick them all off. But yeah, we did from California, which is our favorite place. So it was me and my fiance. We're actually trying to find a wedding venue out there. So that was the first bit of our trip, and we successfully found a place we love in the middle of the desert.
Nice.
So we started there, and then we went to Wyoming, Montana,
oh, wow.
Salt Lake City, Colorado, ended in Washington. So
nice.
Yeah, big trip. I think it was over 4,000 miles of driving.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, so we're just very exhausted.
Yeah, that's a lot of time on the road.
Yeah.
So did you go to? So you went to Montana? Did you say?
Yeah.
Okay. So Yellowstone fan.
Yeah, massive Yellowstone fan. Yeah. So we probably went the wrong time of the year because
it was probably very cold still, wasn't it?
Very cold. Obviously, the more north you get. Obviously, in California, it was boiling, so it was great. So my suitcase was diverse, to say the least. So I had hiking boots, like summer shorts, dresses, and also like thermals. So it was a bit of a weird one, but it was cool because when you drive through, especially through the Rockies, you drive through and the landscape, you're going from like beautiful, like the burnt oranges of Zion to Wyoming and Colorado when it's just snow-capped everything. Wow. It's incredible to do. So if you haven't done it, I really recommend it. My Mrs. Dean has been watching Yellowstone with me, and I think Montana is very much on the bucket list. So I think we might leave it 5 or 10 years for the Yellowstone fever to sort of die down, and it might be a bit less crazy. You go to the States a lot. How have you noticed it changing over the past few years? Yeah, I mean, we do a lot of the West Coast, San Francisco, LA, like San Francisco especially, that's changed quite a lot over the years, and I feel like there's a lot more homelessness, a lot of issues with drugs and crime, and you can even see it in some of the other states as well. So that's quite sad to see. And because while I was out there, obviously we had a lot of the tariff stuff, which was quite interesting from our perspective being from the UK out there's a lot of rallies, and all the states we were in, every time we crossed state line, there was like a different type of rally, and it was interesting to see like who was like kind of leading that rally well, like what side of the fence they were on. So that was really interesting. Politically, like just I find it fascinating. So whether what I believe in or not, like I find it interesting, especially as like my background as a journalist. I find it interesting to immerse myself into that. It's definitely changed a lot, but it's always been beautiful, and it's just a stunning country.
I'm having some. I've got visions in my mind of what you were seeing. So that sounds that sounds amazing. Do you think that? What do you think about like the cost of your trips? Because like, one of the things I think about when it comes to going to the States, one of the things that really puts me off actually is how expensive everything is.
Yep.
Or has become. Like I remember going there as a kid, and it was like, it was $2 a pound, and like, things were not it was, you could live kind of like a king with if you're from the UK in the States, and now like the exchange rate's not that favourable, and with the kind of cost of everything and the tipping culture, which I think has gone crazy, right?
Yeah.
I don't know, but like what was your experience of it like, especially as someone who's been seeing probably it kind of get more and more like bad, right?
Yeah, and it becomes more and more expensive as well. So like out there, it's not that. It is an expensive trip. So I'm going to have to be saving for a little while after, especially as I bought a second suitcase to come home with, because I've bought a lot of things, including a Stetson, which I'm very excited about wearing.
Oh, okay.
It is really expensive, and the tipping culture, I think the norm out there is about 22-25%. It's a high tip, but then also you have like taxes for like city tax. You've got all these other fees that are kind of rolled in, and also I always find it interesting that the price doesn't include like the VAT. So you never know like really what you're paying, and at the end you're like, oh, that actually wasn't that cheap. That was actually really expensive. So it's pretty similar to London prices. So it's kind of, I just kind of take it as we're going to be doing the same sort of thing, paying the same sort of prices. But it's they have better service, so the tipping culture is kind of worth it in that sense. But it is, I was actually looking, because I found it so interesting how high it was, and I wanted to see like what the average wage is, and the average wage for people in restaurants over there, I think it was $2.30 or something like that. So
they live off those tips.
They're
right?
living off it. So it kind of like one thing needs to change. Either the restaurants have to pay more or it's all liable for the customer.
Yeah.
So it's a tricky one, because I don't know how that's going to change.
No, I got a feeling we could easily have this conversation again in 20 years' time, and not much will have changed, other than maybe that tipping rate has gone from 22% to like 50%.
Yeah,
40,
exactly.
50%,
like
right?
we're paying for everything now. Like no business is held responsible, government not held responsible. But I'm pretty sure I read that in some states they're looking to actually tax tips.
Yeah, no, well, that was because that was one of the big things in the election, wasn't it? Right. And Trump was like, I'm going to like not tax your tips. And then Kamala kind of made a bit of a misstep on taxing the tips, and then had to kind of row back from it, didn't she? So, fine. Well, before YouTube and the Google algorithm decides to sort of suppress us for talking about politics, we're going to move swiftly on. So obviously you're now the MD of Medianett. Even when we first met each other 10 years ago, you weren't doing that. So that wasn't exactly your job title. Can you talk us through kind of from school to now, kind of how have you ended up the high-powered MD of a specialist finance publication?
I mean, I have no idea. No, in terms of like how I got into journalism, how I got into publishing, I I've loved it since I don't know how young, so 10, 11. Always wanted to be a journalist or be involved in English in some way. And I actually think it was one of those kind of like school, very young career fairs where we did. And it was like almost like a Sky News, like broadcasting test round or whatever you call it, and you had to go up there and like read the news basically, and I was just like, yes, this is me, I love this is what I want to do. So eventually went and studied it at UCLan, so in Preston.
I know where that is. Yeah.
At the time, that was one of the leading journalism universities, and I'm rubbish at exams. I really have never done well at exams. I'm better at coursework, better at practical stuff. I'm more creative, and their degree was all about like working in a newsroom and just creating news stories, creating news packages, radio packages, magazines, and then you had to do the odd exam, but it wasn't like all written work, which not written work, more exams, which I loved, and I loved that course. So I studied a bit of everything in the first year. So I did radio, did broadcast, did print, online, and then really went into print and online. That was my kind of favorite thing. I love magazines, and I've collected magazines since I was probably about 7. I remember I used to like collect magazines and put all the front covers all over the floor of my bedroom and take photos and send them to the magazine, and used to get them printed. I used to love doing that sort of thing, and I have thousands of magazines in my collection now. To interrupt, what are the magazines that you love to collect the most? Okay, so now, the collection's vast, but I've always collected Vogues.
I was going to say, that was the first one in my mind, yeah.
Vogues are always up there, especially like the ones from like 60s, 70s. Love that. Wow. But also collect a wide range. So Love magazine, Pop magazine, Gentlewoman, Please, Nylon.
Never heard of a lot of these.
Yeah, there's a whole mix, but even I always get laughed for this, but I collect vintage Playboy magazines. So I
think that's actually very cool, because there's something quite nostalgic about them, right?
They are excellent. So from like the 50s to the 70s, that was
like the heyday,
spot.
Right?
Brilliant. And everyone always says, oh yeah, so why do you love those magazines? The journalism was actually incredible in those magazines, and also the style, like the amount of money that they spent on like the cutouts, the embossing, the design of those magazines. Like we try and put like that sort of element into the magazines we do, and I know how expensive that is, and they did it in every issue, and they did it in multiple features, and the journalists that they had were fantastic. The way that they covered the Vietnam War, and I think that era was brilliant. So I love those magazines, and I always find them on my trips in the US as well. So we definitely.
So you were going like some sort of like thrift store, not thrift, like some thrift store or dollar store, and you'll see,
like estate sales. I always try and look for like ones while we're on our travels, and just be like, okay, let's have a look, and the random stuff we bring back. Hence the second suitcase.
Right. Okay.
There's a lot of weird things that I've picked up this is how much I love like print and media. Like I picked up some flyers for a fair in Wyoming from the 50s, and I just love like reading like, I don't know, the price lists and like what they had like on the shows and like advertising from that time. And what would you do? Would you frame that and put that up in your
I
wouldn't
home?
Frame it, but I've got friends who say that when they come round my house, it looks like a museum. So a lot of, I know that especially with like the Kardashian era, like people like think that minimalism is like the trend. Mine's the opposite of that. It's maximalism. You can barely see a space. But I like that. To me, that's homely, and I love that kind of style. And
quite bohemian, maybe?
Yeah, probably. Yeah. It's quite like,
retro and
Yeah, and I love those, especially when we go traveling or go on road trips. I just love to pick like little mementos and just, yeah. So they're kind of all dotted around. And I pick up old newspapers as well. And I picked up loads on this trip from 1890 to today.
Wow.
And it would just be like really interesting times in history. So I picked up one when I was in Montana, and it was about the train line in the early 1900s and how that massively transported people from like into the Northwest. And so I had like a really good front cover newspaper. So I was like, got to buy this. I love it. So I don't know where I'll put that in the house, but I'll find a spot.
I guess that your relocation to Surrey for more space was a genuine necessity.
Yeah, I lived in London for about 10 years and moved there obviously for when I found the job at Medianett. Which was I know we've gone completely off piece.
I'm sure we can get back there.
Yeah, we'll get back.
This is more interesting.
And I was there for 10 years and I lived in Brixton for 5, got an apartment with my brother. It's the only real opportunity to be able to buy at that age, to buy with siblings or friends. I loved it there. But we had a tiny room, and you should have seen how we like stacked our books and magazines and our collection. It was just insane, just to try and fit it in. So when we actually moved into Surrey, into Farnham, it was just a next level, like to be able to like look at how much space we actually have and build bookcases to size, because we collect vinyls as well. I wouldn't say hoarders, but at first glance, maybe. No, we love music, and we love magazines and newspapers, and just really into it.
So could you be regularly found on a weekend outside some sort of lock-up warehouse, like estate sale, or car boot sales?
Yeah, I haven't been to one of those in a long time, but I do love that sort of thing. I love going to the Isle of Wight, because the Isle of Wight has like these weird pockets of really interesting like thrifty or antique malls and
sort of a bit lost in, like trapped in time.
I love it, and especially when you can just like sift through like books and stuff. Like I found like this just on the latest holiday, like this beautiful book that someone had hand drawn maps of the Grand Canyon, and it was from like the 30s, and it's stunning. And I was like, yes, I need this in my life. So it's just random stuff. I probably sound a little bit insane, but
do you know, I think it's really nice that you've got something that you feel really passionate about, and it's very niche, but like you it's your niche. So I think a lot of people sort of live other people's lives, don't they? But I don't think that could be said about you, at least in that regard. It's definitely a very individual pursuit, and it's great to have that passion, right? So these things, and they are beautiful things at the end of the day. Like it's very random. A book of maps of the Grand Canyon. On the other hand, who doesn't like an old map?
Exactly.
Yeah.
And I think finding like the beauty and the aesthetic in especially like older publications, pamphlets, magazines, whatever it is, even shows and music flyers. Don't even get me started on flyers for like the old hatch print music flyers for concerts, like the Elvis Presley, Dolly Parton, like all of that stuff was unreal. I went to the hatch print their actual factory. It's not really a factory, but their place, and we got to like do our own screen printing. That was so cool. But I love stuff like that. But I feel like it inspires me, especially on like the marketing and publishing side, because everyone's always looking forward on how to innovate, which is great, and I think that's always what you should be doing. But also you can take inspiration from like things in the past that worked really well, and like I think people took a lot more care and stuff, care about that sort of thing in the past. And I just love, like, especially when it's like hand done. Like I love that handmade element. So I always try and think of ideas like from things I've loved and I've seen. Yeah.
Well, that's really cool. And I think when I look at the next time I look at the magazine, I'm going to the Bridging Commercial magazine. I'm going to look at it through a very different lens now, knowing that. This podcast is sponsored by Avamore Capital. Avamore Capital is a development and bridging lender based in London, but lending all over England and Wales, lending on projects from £250,000 all the way up to £25 million on bridging, development, refurb and part complete developments. Please visit www.avamorecapital.com to find out more. In terms of the journey, you were UCLAN or UCLAN, and I mean, it sounded like actually a very good course, very well planned, seemed to be very practical. Sounds like would have got you really geared up for life in some form of media. How did they prepare you for the workplace in the sense of that? Journalism is, knowing some friends who tried to make a start in journalism. How do they prepare you for life in journalism, which is very, very competitive, very cutthroat? I mean, what did they do for you to sort of say, look, you maybe forget writing for Vogue, you might need to go and work for Auto Parts Weekly, or whatever.
This is actually quite spot on. So I think the best bit of advice I had was don't just write about what you're really passionate about right now. Get a good experience in different places and see what you actually like. So and you're right, I wanted to, especially with the magazines I collected at the time, I wanted to work for a magazine, wanted to work for a lifestyle or fashion magazine. I thought that's where my passion was and what I'd be excellent at writing for. And after doing internships there at a range of magazines, mainly wedding and lifestyle and home, I realised that actually wasn't as exciting as I thought it would be, apart from the obvious perks of getting the freebies in the in the inventory closet that they'd always get, all the free makeup and perfume and all that kind of stuff. But yeah, I think I realised it when I was writing a piece on antique wallpaper, which you would think would be right up my street.
Actually, yeah.
But I think merging the two, I realized actually I wanted something a bit meatier to get into. But the best piece of advice I got from uni was to always carry a notebook with you. And to take notes of everything. And actually that's been really useful for me because I have a memory like a sieve. So I'm terrible with names and terrible with, which is really bad as a journalist, but I'm really terrible with remembering short memory. So I take notes on everything, and I'll do it even now. If anyone's saying what they've got planned or what they want to do, I'll just take a note, be on my phone now rather than in a notepad. But that has been a massive thing, and it's something which I always try and push new team members of ours as well, always to do. Just take. There's nothing you can lose from taking notes and stuff. And it does make your life a lot easier, whether or not you have a good memory or not. So that was number one, and for a journalist anyway, just take notes of everything. And I found it really useful for you've probably seen our one-day features for the magazine, just before you even get to the interview, to take notes of what your travel was like to get to their, I don't know, if you're going to their office, or what you were doing that morning, or what the first experience was when you met them. And there's all these kind of little nuances which I think really kind of build a story up rather than just diving straight into it.
Oh yeah, because I guess it sort of humanizes it. It sort of it sets the scene, doesn't it? And builds, sets the scene, builds a narrative, adds color to it, sort of humanizes it. So I think that's actually a really good point, right?
Yeah.
So yeah, from a journalistic standpoint, I'm pretty sure when I write to my investors and tell them about what I had for breakfast and how my commute was, they're going to be like, yeah, we kind of don't give a shit.
Yes. Exactly. Show us the money. It definitely, I mean, features is what I've always enjoyed, like profiles, features with people, and like really getting to like the heart of like who they are as a person rather than just like what they do, because who cares? Like, it's great to know their successes, but actually like what drives a person, I find really fascinating. So yeah, that sort of thing, just taking notes is like such an obvious thing, but I don't feel people do it as often now. So yeah, I remember doing an internship at a wedding magazine, and I was just standing there with a notepad. Anything they said, I was like, yeah, okay, got it. And because I just knew like my memory isn't great, and that has helped me.
Did you have to learn shorthand as well?
Yeah, I've got my 120 words per minute shorthand.
Wow.
So I did that as part of the degree. You had to kind of do it alongside it. And my tutor at the time was hilarious. Like she was like an older lady, really funny and really blunt. And I remember there was one time where, because everyone called me the Southern Fairy because I was up north and I was always cold. So I remember coming in and sitting in there with my coat because I was like, it's freezing. And I sat there with my coat and she was like, you'll never feel the benefit. And I was just like, oh, I'm leaving my coat on. And then and she was like, no, you got to take it off. So I went to take it off and I couldn't unzip it. And she had to cut me out of my coat in front of the whole class.
Wow.
So that was an interesting memory. But yeah, shorthand was good. I don't really use it that much now, and didn't really use it a whole lot as a journalist. I did when I wanted a backup, and it was great for a backup.
What about dictaphone? Like, were you someone who used a dictaphone a lot as well?
I use a dictaphone. Well, I did use a dictaphone a lot, but I'd always take backup with shorthand.
Right, okay.
You never know if you're going to...
Because it could not, yeah.
If it doesn't... I remember I did one with a council leader, and like it was right by a radiator, and the radiator kept going off, and I just... getting huge bits of audio that were just, you couldn't hear anything. No. And it was such a pain. But because I took shorthand at the same time, yeah. I was saved. So that is useful. And I don't use it now because I don't really get involved as much on the journalism side. But I do, it's a weird habit, I think, just to keep it fresh. Like if I'm watching the news, I'll do shorthand in my head of them broadcasting it just to practice. So I'm just like, yeah, okay, that's how you do it. So I think it's useful for anyone to learn if they're going into journalism. But I remember before I got looked to apply for Medianett, I went to I've been a vegetarian since I was about 14. And you were saying earlier about how cutthroat the journalism market is. So, and I was looking everywhere for jobs, and everywhere wanted like junior reporters, but they wanted you to have at least 2 years of experience. So I was like, okay, well, how how are you supposed to do that unless you intern for 2 years for free, which was not viable for me. Like I couldn't afford to do that. I did it for, a month, 2 weeks at a time in different places. That was hard, but still fine. So I was looking at anywhere, and the places generally which came up, which you could get into a little bit easier, didn't ask for loads of experience, were the trades. And actually I won at uni Best Trade magazine. We created one we won a national award for it, and it was called The Baking Sheet. So it was me and about 5 others who created it, and it was for independent bakery businesses. So we'd actually got into like the trade magazine space. So we're like, okay, we're good at this. And then we went, and so I was looking at the trade space, and it was like a meat trade magazine. and also I didn't realize at the time, but I had actually had like a portfolio in my email signature to like my journalism, like cuttings and like my portfolio so far, which was very light, but I'd had in there like an article about being vegetarian. So whoever took me on for the interview at this meat trade magazine obviously had seen that. I don't know why they'd even take me on, but they did. I was like, I will just do anything. And I remember the first question this guy asked me was, so how would you feel about walking through an abattoir? And I was just like, my face was obviously saying something different, but I was like, yeah, it's fine. But my face was probably like, fuck off. So yeah, I was willing to sell my soul. at that point. And then I found some financial journalism places, which I thought was a little bit scary at the time. I was like, oh, don't know, would I be good at that? Is that something which I'd be interested in? And found the role at Medianett. At the time it was called Medianett. It's now Medianett Publishing. And it was B&C was the first title, like their flagship title, which still is. And went along to the interview. It was at this really small office in Kilburn High Street, near Willesden, above a really dodgy bus stop. And went in for an interview and just found it really interesting, just really loved it. And I remember my task was to write an article, like a feature about the associations of the time in the industry, which I had no clue. I remember they like shot the names of them to me really quickly in the interview. And I remember coming out of the interview just like, I do not remember any of those. Obviously at the time it was the ABP, the NACFB and the ASTOL, which is obviously now BDLA. And I had to write like 1,000-word article about what these associations do, who's involved, blah, blah, blah. I remember coming out and Mo, the founder of the business, walked out after me. And he obviously could tell, like, I was just a bit like, okay, I'm not sure if I actually know what I'm supposed to be writing about, but I'm going to, I'd obviously taken a note, but I probably got all the letters the wrong way around because it was kind of put on me quite quickly. And then he came out and he was really lovely and was just like, look, you need to research these guys, and just spend time researching that over the weekend. So that really helped me be like, okay, no, this is what I need to do. And I spent the whole weekend researching these associations and putting together an article. And I was really proud of it, submitted it, and I got the job. So came in as a junior reporter, and I've pretty much worked in every role in the business over 11 years, so which is useful because it means that when I'm hiring people or when I'm managing people now, I've kind of been there. So I know like where the challenges are, or
so you would have done sales as well, like sales, advertising sales, or selling the selling stands at the FP show and and road shows and all the rest of it.
So I've gone through like creating new news websites, some of which are still around today, some of which aren't, just the nature of the business. We always like to take a punt, so we always like to try something new, especially if we kind of see like an emerging market. We want to be in there. So new websites, I think I've launched 5 over 11 years, 2 new print magazines, rebranded certain websites, news websites. Definitely need to do that again. That's always a huge task. Just rebranded the FP show site, putting in new, trying to grow obviously those events like the awards and the FP show. But I've obviously been involved in news reporting, managing an editorial team, as well as selling advertising, selling stands, selling sponsorships and tables. So it's kind of been a big mix. And also just securing partnerships, media partnerships. We try and like get involved with loads of other events and shows and media outlets that we think we work quite well alongside. So
what could you give examples of that, because that's quite interesting for me, just to know like what does that actually look like in practice?
So we've done it with quite a few other kind of trade shows, which works well. I believe it was actually just before I went on holiday, so I need to check where we're at with it. NACB, for example, we would do a media partnership with them, and that would just be like to promote the magazine to their audience, and then us to promote their show. And then we would also do kind of contra deals with certain expos where we would promote our show to their audience and vice versa.
Okay.
Especially if it's like a similar audience but not too similar,
like,
that would
like
just,
landlord show or something like that.
Something like that. It would work. I don't actually think we do partner with them, but that sort of thing would work. So yeah, there's kind of a mix. We've had a few like kind of funder investor shows that we've partnered with because they want to get more lenders, and we're actually more interested in getting funders as well to come from the lending side. So yeah, it's that works really well, and also like working with like mortgage networks, clubs. I think having the magazine as a tool would be really useful for like their members. Yeah. So that's something which we've had discussions about. It's kind of been a mix. Yeah. Trying like we feel that the specialist finance market is a lot bigger than what maybe the stats show. Yeah. And we feel
we've had this conversation privately anyway. I think.
And we feel like it could be a lot bigger if there's more education out there. Yeah. And there's so many untapped markets which we're looking at and we feel like we could grow into. So that's obviously part of that is having kind of media partnerships, advertising, like really like entering into different areas to do that. So yeah, it's always a moving beast. Yeah.
So, and how long ago did you move into the role of managing director? Because obviously for as long as when we started Avamore, obviously we had Karen, who were, you were sort of like, you and Karen, you came as a pair, and you sort of thick as thieves, and then and obviously Karen now doing her own thing. So how did that all sort of come about? How did you when you swooped into the role of MD?
Yeah, so I think at the time I was publishing director, so I was which was still very much what I was doing anyway, overseeing the editorial department, editorial side of the business, which is about half the business, and the other half is more marketing and events.
Events, yeah.
And as part of that role, I was getting more commercial. And I never thought I wanted to be in sales. I really didn't think that was my bag at all. Found out I was actually quite good at it. Enjoyed it. I really got the buzz from it. And I think kind of my background in talking to people and being a good listener is that I really liked understanding what our clients wanted and really getting to grips with what they do as a business, what they care about, what they're passionate about, and what their ultimate goal is, so that I can help them with that. So I found that kind of lent really well to that sort of commercial role. But that was quite difficult for me to kind of move away from the journalism side, because once you go commercial, you can't really merge.
It's hard to go back.
Yeah, so I was like, okay, no, actually, once I realised I actually really enjoyed it, I continued with that. And I think that year I was made publishing director. I think the magazine had almost tripled in profit. So yeah, I was really chuffed with that, and kind of realised that that's what I was not born to do, but that's what I was good at. So when Karen decided she wanted to do her own thing, this role was not something which I not put myself forward for, but it's not something I particularly wanted. That's quite a lot of pressure on your shoulders to run a business. But Mo, it was kind of like, it was his. He just went, yeah, this is what you're going to be doing. So at first I was a bit like, I'm not sure. I don't know if this is the right move for me. But I quickly just, I don't know, molded myself to it, and I just started really enjoying it. But I've had to learn a lot along the way.
From a distance, you take into it like a duck to water. So it's been pretty seamless from the outside looking in.
Yeah, maybe from the outside.
Maybe the duck to water analogy is like, you're calm above the surface, and it's frantically, underneath the legs are flapping.
The duck is in hoisin and pancake rolls, right? Yeah, it's been some of it's has come naturally, and some of it's just been like, this is completely new, it's completely different. But I've done a lot of self-learning, because obviously when you're in that kind of role, you don't really have much of a mentor at that stage. So I've done a lot of reading, a lot of learning like on my own, and actually that's helped massively. And I think just being a good listener does help. So there's things I've just implemented which over time has really transformed what we do as a business. And yeah, it's never a finished project.
No.
So product. It's always ongoing, which I'm sure you know as well. Like there's always things which you feel like, oh, we could have done a bit better at that.
Well, and sometimes you have ideas and you have to go back. Sometimes you have to go backwards to go forwards as well. That's we're obviously going through a management restructure at the moment, and just obviously the as much as we'd have liked the previous management team to have been successful, and for us all, our hopes and dreams to have been achieved, it doesn't always work out like that. So it's entirely right. How involved is Mo in the business now? I know he was always still, he was spending most of the time in Lebanon, even 5-10 years ago. But how's his engagement with you? How much of him do you see? Guessing you speak to him quite frequently, but I guess at the same time he's picked you out for the role because he trusts you.
Yeah.
Because knowing Mo a little bit, obviously not as well, nowhere near as well as you or many others. But knowing him a little bit, I think he's the sort of person that, you've got to be in that circle of trust for him, and so the fact that he was like, no, now you're doing this role, it obviously screams he trusts you implicitly. What advice would you give to other people who, might find themselves in that situation, that they could, what are the key things you think in your mind that enabled you to build that trust? And what could someone learn from that?
Yeah, I think, so to answer your first question about how involved he is, he's pretty much the same as he has been over the last 10 or so years. So he lives abroad majority of the time. He comes back for our big events, but we have a monthly sales meeting. So he cares about the bottom line, just normal CEO founder responsibilities. So, but he's always the great thing is that he's always available. If I send him a WhatsApp or call him, he picks up straight away. He's wherever he is in the world, he'll be like, what do you need? Which luckily isn't that much, especially now. At the beginning, probably a bit more. We chatted probably almost daily at that point, but now it's not as often, but it's like a nice mutual support for each other, which is really good. But in terms of building trust, I think so I always like the analogy that, because I know that people often say you need to earn trust. I think people should have trust to begin with, and then you either break it or you don't. Mm-hmm. So I think it's about like owning any mistakes you make, mm-hmm. not hiding behind them. It doesn't mean that you don't give a shit. Yeah. It just means that you're a human and you make mistakes, but it's how you deal with it and how you actually own up to that.
Yeah.
So that's really important. So it's about not constantly trying to build show that you are trustworthy. It's more about not breaking that trust, which should be there at the beginning.
Yeah.
Regardless, if someone's hired you for a role, for example, it's because they trust you. They wouldn't hire you otherwise. No. They kind of instantly feel that you've got a good work ethic. So I think it's that, and just almost treating. So obviously the business is Mo's business, but I treat the business as if it's completely my money and it's my business. So I treat it in that way. So, and that comes down to counting the pennies and pounds and not the six figures.
Yeah.
So, if I'm looking at something, I'll try and get 3 different versions of that. No, we need to get the best, most economic. We need to get the best for us as a business. So it's not about the easiest path. So I do think I feel, and I in my role, I feel like the business is mine.
Yeah.
And I think having that, he has complete trust in me because I have that analogy of it.
Yeah.
Don't know
yeah, you bring that. You bring that care. You bring that care and attention. You behave like a business owner, even if you're not the business owner, if for want of a better expression, which I think for someone who is an MD of a business, it's exact, and from an owner's perspective, that's exactly what you want.
Yeah, of course.
That's exactly what you want. So you totally understand why he's put his trust in you, and when you assumed the role, I don't think anyone batted an eyelid. It would have been like, oh yeah, that makes sense. Or Karen's gone and Beth's taken over. Yeah, makes perfect sense. Yeah, that's that's It's like, oh yeah, no brainer. Okay, yeah. Right. Next, what's next on the agenda? Speaking about what's next, what is you've recently moved to the business, relocated the business to Guildford. Obviously, you're a Guildford girl, Surrey girl. You live not very far away. I obviously tried to recruit you to my building in Godalming, but you need to be in the bright lights of Guildford, obviously. But what's next for Medianett? What are you excited about?
Yeah, so we've just hired 3 new people, all based in Guildford, and the majority of the team anyway were kind of outskirts of London or Surrey, so it kind of just made sense to move out of London when the majority of the team are quite office based. I'll still be in London at least once a week to see clients, and also Manchester we go quite a bit. So that's not going to change what I do, but what it will do is save a lot of time for the majority of people. Yeah. It will just be a better work-life balance. Just you probably know that the strikes on the trains over the last few years, the delays, the constant delays, the prices go up. It's not a nice experience to commute into London. So if you have a team where actually it makes more sense to not commute to London, then why? Yeah. So it made sense. So I feel like we're going to have a lot more productivity as a result. Even though I feel like the whole team was really productive before, it will just give us a bit more time, and also just not having to get into London and sit down at your desk and already be stressed. Yeah. You would kind of want that, actually I'm going to go a nice country route to work this morning. It's going to be really lovely. So it's going to be a lot better mentally. And also there's some really good people, really good talent outside of London who might not want to commute to London, and so they're looking for other jobs that are in the home counties. So we're going to be this exciting new media company that's in Guildford, and I think people will be queuing up the door to get a journalism job or whatever the case is. So we're really excited. Really excited about obviously the awards. We've moved venue in the first time in over 10 years. That's and that's in your neck of the woods as well. So that will be really cool to have that in Windsor. Very excited about that, and that's been quite a scary thing to move, especially when you know the venue inside and out. But it's been needed. Yeah, we've been wanting to do it for a while.
Is it just because the Hurlingham you were just restricted by the it was getting bigger and bigger, and you just couldn't expand it? Or?
It's a multitude of reasons. So that's probably the main one. The fact is you were restricted to a certain amount of tables you could fit in there, and we always sold out, and so we had to be very exclusive, which I like. I don't want it to grow to a ridiculous size. I still like that specialist exclusive feel to it, but you always want anything you do to grow. So that was one of the reasons. Also the layout of the room, everyone knows it's so difficult, and it's such a rowdy room. It's really difficult. It was really long. So there was that. Also, they're building a new cafe, I believe, cafe or a restaurant in one of the wings. So it's actually going to take off even more of the...
It's going to be more cramped, basically.
So it's going to be more cramped. And also there was a lot of restrictions. Yeah. Because it's a members club. It's a beautiful place, but there was a lot of restrictions. So...
and let's be honest, the specialist finance community, not always the best behaved after they've had a drink. So, yeah.
You said it.
Definitely. Well, put it this way, probably one of the most exclusive members clubs in the whole of London. Just for anyone who doesn't know what we're talking about, we're talking the Bridging Commercial Awards, which is every June, and and it's held at the Hurlingham. It has been historically held at the Hurlingham Club, and Hurlingham Club. If you're living under a rock, it's this exclusive sort of tennis and bowls and croquet and all sorts of racket sports club. That's like dead man's boots to get into, and it's just. It's just insanely. I think Abramovich tried to buy it for £1 billion or something. Buy the site for about £1 billion. Back when he wasn't sanctioned. And put it this way. Ben and Bob from Manchester. The brokers from Manchester who want to get on it for the day. It's those members are not. They're not Bob and Ben. They're not Hurlingham types, let's be honest, right? So some put it this way, we're going somewhere a little bit further uptown with a bit more space where you can contain the blast radius a bit better. That's definitely a good plan.
Exactly. And I just the way that you were explaining the Hurlingham Club, and obviously like the 200-year waiting list to get in. And I think it was a few years ago, and I just remember one of the security guys having to escort one of the guests out for throwing bread rolls at someone. So you just
That's so tame though.
It's just so funny how you set the scene about like luxurious and beautiful places, and someone's just throwing their dinner rolls at someone. But it's all good fun.
So we've got the new venue for the awards, and you were talking about the rebrand of the FP show. I loved this year's FP show. The one that we just had. I had to actually do a recording with Stephen Burns in the afternoon, so I had to cut short my stay at the FP show. Really love that bit of even though Olympia's being kind of redeveloped and it's a real faff to get around the back of it. I kind of like the venue. Like, even though it's November, because you've got the glass, it sort of feels. It feels
different.
nice.
You don't feel like you're in a basement.
Basically.
It's a really nice venue. With the works that have been going around it, that has been quite difficult to manage with them. It took us a while to even secure the contract for it this year. I know Emily, who's our events manager, she was just pulling her hair out over it. But it is a great venue, and what they are building, especially with the conference area, and there's more music venues, and it's going to be an amazing venue altogether in the near future. So we love it there. We've managed to grow the footfall tenfold over the last couple of years each year. So it's
tenfold.
10%.
Yeah. Sorry. I know COVID was bad, but
it was really bad. No, but it's been double figures each year. So it's been really good for that. We've also just pushed different marketing as well. So we've pushed and had different media partnerships. FP Show's been doing really well, and we just thought the branding of it, love the iconic red and white of the FP show, but we just needed something to zhuzh it up. So we've got a little rebrand coming, got a new website. It should be launching end of this month. That will be coming soon. Slightly different branding colours, but still very much at the heart of what it was. So it just gives us a bit more to promote.
Yeah, no, I definitely see that. How did you find the switch from the Wednesday to the Friday?
Yeah, so obviously that happened because of train strikes. It was actually a Thursday, I believe.
Oh no, that's right.
Thursday to a Friday, but it was a train strike, and we had to. I think it was the first show after COVID. And we just thought, there's no way the first show after COVID, we're going to have a massive train strike and people just can't turn up, or you can't have as many people turn up. So we just moved it to the Friday. And there was it was big stress for all the exhibitors involved, having to reorganize stuff, and a cost for us as well. But it worked really well, and we had one of the biggest turnouts. We're like, this is amazing. So we did a survey the following year, beginning of the year, and just said do do you prefer the Friday? what day do you prefer? And the majority said they preferred the Friday because they like to be able to go, as you all know, to the pub afterwards or like, chat, network and chat afterwards and not have to go back to the office.
Yeah.
So it worked really well. Normally Friday is like a dead day. You just never do an event on a Friday. And it's just worked really well. Each year we always survey everyone who attends, exhibitors and delegates. Interestingly, all the exhibitors say they prefer a Thursday, but all the delegates prefer a Friday. And
I don't disagree with I disagree with the rest of the exhibitors. I think Friday's really good.
It makes sense because especially if people are traveling from up north, for example, and they want to come down, it just means that they could spend the weekend in London if they want to.
Or they come down on a Thursday night and then,
exactly.
Easy, yeah.
It just makes a bit more sense. And I feel like people are a little bit more relaxed and not thinking, it's the middle of the week, I've got to get back to work and I've got this tomorrow and this. I think it has worked really well. But we always say, like, to the exhibitors, obviously they're the ones paying us because they're exhibiting, that we're going to go with the delegates because you're paying to have them there. So if they all prefer the Friday it is. Yeah. We just go with what we take the feedback on board every year, and we get some really interesting comments and feedback. So last year I think there was massive queues for coffee because we just had huge amount of attendance. So we've now got a whole new coffee charging area. We've got some new zones. We've increased the floor plan twice. So last year we increased it. This year we've had to increase it again. We've had to build 2 huge more stands and another kind of section of shelves. So it's growing, which is really exciting.
Beth Fisher, it's been an absolute pleasure. Where can people find you on the internet? Where can people find if they're not subscribed to Bridging Commercial? How do they get subscribed? How do they connect?
Yeah, so you can find me on LinkedIn at Bethany Fisher, or please do subscribe to our B&C magazine, which you can find on bridgingcommercial.co.uk. We've got all of our products on there, online, digital, got the lender index, got links to all of our events, the awards, the shows. So you can find it all on B&C, bridgingcommercial.co.uk.
Brilliant. And I've been Michael Dean. I'm at property_funder on the internet. Please do get in touch. Thanks very much for watching. Thanks very much for listening. We'll chat to you again on the next one. Thanks and bye-bye.